me, and I know you'll see that a song changes everything.
Welcome, everyone, to Arts for the Health of It. I'm Richard Wilmore.
I'm Catherine Pardesini, and we're here with Kate Powell. I can't do
And
the right
I always
direction.
forget to do this. Do that again. Well, every single time we're going to do this. I
Okay,
promise
ready?
this will get better. Okay, ready, go.
We're here with Kate Powell.
Hi, Kate.
Hi.
Welcome.
I love the accolades at the beginning. I feel like you should do that a few more times. I'm just kidding.
Oh, we can. Every time, every 3
time we
minutes.
say
I'll
her
set a
name.
timer. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So, Kate. We should have been recording this before because we had a great conversation about Christmas music before we started. Yes. Kate is a lover of Christmas and Christmas music, as I am. Catherine, you didn't really chime in, so I feel like maybe you're not.
Yeah.
Or
No, I am, and actually, my 6-year-old insists that the Christmas music is on all the time.
As she should.
Yes, so he's like the little cheery elf in our house.
So he's the best. He should be a member of this team. He kind of is. Before we get into what Kate's actually here for, before we get into what Kate
oh gosh
is actually here for, it's Thanksgiving week, so I have 2 questions. Are you both listening to Christmas music yet, or when does that get turned? When does Michael, Catherine, allow it to be turned on? And do you have rules around that? And then each of you, what are you most thankful for this year?
I'll let Kate go first.
Okay. Absolutely listening to Christmas music.
Yes,
100%. Me too.
100%. Wow. Have been listening to it since like June, and sometimes I'll just listen to it whenever. It's very helpful for me to calm down. Mm-hmm. And went in hard starting October 1st, and then I am most thankful for my, like, seriously, this sounds very corny, but just my family, particularly my husband this year. We started foster parenting, and it's been a very fun, crazy, insane, awesome journey. Like, there's just no other way to describe that. And, we just moved into a new house, and I just love our family. I love what we're doing, even when it's nuts. So that's what I'm most thankful for, is like, I would not trade it for anything, even when it's driving me crazy.
That's how you know it's good.
Yes.
So same on the music. It's already happening.
Wow.
And let's see, most grateful for this year, I think just health, like the health of my own family. It's something we try not to take for granted. And so I'm grateful that I feel like as a family, we try to do things that are, whether it's going for a walk or anything, that we're just more attentive to that over the past year.
That's awesome.
What about you, Richard? What's the Christmas music status and your gratitude?
The Christmas music wouldn't stop if I make myself. It would be a year-round thing. I do it in order. It's a whole thing. But I make myself wait until the day after Thanksgiving. And then it's usually nonstop. I'm also the person who still has the CDs in my car and a little thing. And I love that. To me is part of it, right? Not just downloading music. To me, it's the CDs and all of it. So I haven't started yet, although I did drive to Wisconsin a couple weeks ago, and it was snowing, and I had to drive 4 hours in the snow and the sleet. And we turned on Christmas music then to calm me, like Kate said she does, because I was in a panic attack of I haven't driven in snow in 5 years and I don't know what I'm doing. So we put on Christmas music. It was perfect because we don't really get snow usually in Texas. So it made sense, but it stopped as soon as we were out of the car, and I haven't listened to it since, but I will start on Friday of this week, it turns out.
Exciting.
Yeah, and I'm thankful for growth. Personally, professionally, Hearts Need Arts growth. It's been a really fun year, and I'm excited for the future.
Awesome.
All right. The future of the podcast is not just us babbling, though. We're here for a reason, although I thought that was fun. Kate, tell us where you're from, like literally where you're from in the United States,
Okay.
where you're at, because I think that's always fun because we talk to people from all over the world, and then what you do there, because it's very exciting and fascinating.
Yes. So we are in Norfolk, Virginia, which is more commonly associated with Virginia Beach, Virginia. But just so you all know, there is a difference. We do independent cities here instead of counties. And so when you call Norfolk, Virginia Beach or vice versa, like from outside, we're always very quick to be like, no.
That's
like,
a no. Yeah.
Right. I'm from Norfolk. So I live in Norfolk. Our office is in Norfolk. We do serve all the cities around us, including Virginia Beach. So no hate, just loyalty. But I just want to make that clear to everyone. So that's where we are. And for those who need like a visual, we're in the southeastern corner of the state, right up against the Atlantic Ocean. So we get the ocean. It's super fun here. And so what I do in this great city of mine is serve as the executive director of Tidewater Arts Outreach. And we are an agency that focuses exclusively on using arts to bring joy and healing to older and isolated adults. We added the and isolated several years ago to our mission statement to make sure that we were really capturing what we were doing. Because, those two groups of people, we're definitely going to talk more about this later, but they overlap significantly. But then there's always in the Venn diagram of things, there's outliers. And we're very much more about including more and not less. And so we definitely wanted to make sure that we added that directly into our mission and made a statement about it. So.
And what kind of arts do you guys incorporate into your programming? Is it just music? Is it visual? Is it?
Yeah, it's always a great question. And the answer is what can you think of? We're open to it. And so we have an artist roster of, I want to say 90-ish individuals and groups represented at this point. So yeah, a lot of artistic personnel. And we have 4 major areas: music, visual arts, performing arts, and literary arts. But within those umbrellas, huge diversity. Under literary arts, you can do poetry, oral histories, personal histories, storytelling, creative writing, all kinds of things. Visual art, I have almost every medium you can imagine, from clay to paint to, decoupage, like mixed media, just anything that you could possibly think of. Resin, we're getting into now. So there's a lot of different mediums and disciplines within our roster. Every genre under the sun in the music area. We go classical, we go rock, we go one-man band, we have actual bands, bluegrass. It's just it's a huge diversity of things. And so when we approach partners about doing programs, we're very much what do you want? Because we probably have it.
Right. Your menu is pretty extensive.
I have referred to it as a menu before. I'm here's your menu of options. And we actually limit the menu sometimes to not all of the possibilities. And I tell partners, I'm look, if I gave you every single thing we've ever done, you're not even going to read the list. You're going to get overwhelmed and you won't work with me anymore. So
you need an index.
Right, exactly. And let me give you a sampling and then we'll go from there.
Can you talk a little bit about your partners? Are they what types of facilities are you going in? Are you doing classes on your own, or are you working exclusively with facilities?
Right. So this is always a big question. And I always tell people we're a B2B business. So we're doing all programs in partnership with other organizations that are already serving older and isolated adults. Because typically it's not hard for the adults that we're focusing on to receive services. It is hard to reach them, as it were, piecemeal. And so the most efficient way we found is to work through partnership. Partners can be senior living communities, nursing and rehabilitation centers, day support centers, hospitals, shelters, libraries, city parks and rec, general community groups that are focused on seniors, a service provider for adults with disabilities, integrated behavioral health care, just whatever you can think of. So we've got municipal partners and private partners and, congregate care, just seriously, what we tell people is like, if you work with older and isolated adults, you should call us. We can probably do something. It will look differently. Some partners we work with like once a week or more than once a week, and others are more of like once a month or once a quarter, but we're like down for the ride as long as we're targeting the groups that we're trying to target.
When you're in those, excuse me, those types of facilities, are those interactions in a group? Are you doing one-on-one in their rooms, or is it kind of a blend of?
Right. So typically it is group programming. Again, we're trying to go for an efficiency model as much as possible. And because a huge aim of our work is defeating social isolation, doing group programs is, that's part of the deal, is increasing those social connections and working with others and feeling accomplished alongside others and, bringing joy, which is usually done in groups. That being said, we sometimes have program models that are one-on-one, and we also don't put pressure on our partners to reach a certain census with us. So we don't say like, oh, the only way that you can work with us is if you have a group of at least 20 or 10 or something. If we've learned nothing from this pandemic, it's like RSVPs and events now really hard. And we're not here to make it harder. So we've done programs for one person. We thought maybe 10 would show up, and one person showed up, and that artist is just like, that's cool. You get a private lesson with me today. Awesome. Or something. We tell our artists to be as flexible as possible. We do as much planning as we can, but in the moment, it's like you're there to serve the person or persons who are there. Or sometimes the program really is designed for one. So for an example, we have some partners who are hospice providers, and we've done bedside, programs for one patient that was, maybe imminent, as they say in hospice. And it's like we want another experience. They're still here, and that's always really powerful. And our artists walk away from that feeling, like, wow, I really this was impactful and a great moment. So, again, the answer is everything and anything. We try to be very open to the needs of our partners. So what are their needs? What are they looking for from a creative or an artistic experience? And then fulfill their hopes and dreams from there.
Did you have a question?
Richard, no,
okay.
you go.
So we always, this podcast and what we do in Arts and Health is all about the celebration of what we're doing. And you're working with a population that we have found, I guess, at Heart Scene Art, maybe not for you, that it's sometimes difficult to get that yes out of them, that they want to engage and that they can be creative. How do you find that? Is it different because of where you're at, and how do you overcome that with your patients?
Yeah. So we're sometimes working with residents, patients, just general community members. That's actually something we do when we do partner intake, is we say what do your people call themselves, and make sure that we're doing a very social work focused, intake where we're going to meet you where you're at language wise and needs wise. When we do intake with a partner, we interview them on a lot of these questions, what are the challenges that you're seeing in the programming you're already doing? What are you looking for? Are you trying to engage more men? I mean, that's something that we hear several times, which sounds weird, but it's not, because, typically what will happen is in your average senior living community, and they call them communities, not facilities, by the way. If you call them a facility, they get real mad at you. So, and not, obviously not fussing or anything. It's just, I have been on the end of that so many times. I'm like, I'm sorry. So, but anyway, when we're talking to them, they'll say things like, oh yeah, when we put out a paint class or something, all the women will show up and we get no guys. And so we'll be like, well, what about a comedian? Or something like that. Why don't we try something else that maybe will be a little more accessible, or at least seem more accessible to everyone? They make those social connections with those around them, and then they're more likely to participate in the other programs because they're like, oh, well, so-and-so's going, so I'm going to go too. Humans never stop doing that. I don't care how old you get. They're always like that. And I think also this is back to your question about how we get them engaged and how we overcome that. We do train our artists pretty extensively, and this is who you're serving. When we first bring them on the artist roster, they have an interview with myself and my program director. we're very much like, this is who you're serving, or these are the different groups of people that you'll be serving. You know, feel free to experiment, to try new things, to make adaptations. You know, like, you don't have to, there are no rules here. The only rule is that you bring joy. How you do that is very much up to you. You're the expert in what you do. We are not. We are here to make the connections and provide you with the resource, pay you, all those things, and you're there to really make the magic happen. So we do that. And we also, I think, because we work in partnership, we're already working with trusted individuals for the participants. So they already know this activity director, they already know that program manager, they already know this outreach coordinator, like all of those, like there's already a relationship there. And that's part of the beauty of the partnership model, is not trying to establish trust with the end user ourselves, but saying, like, presenting our product and our service and making it a good value for who we're providing it for, and then letting that relationship facilitate their participation. And it takes time, like, absolutely. Again, like sometimes we've had a program of one for the first one because they were just like, what is that? And that's becoming less and less common now. We are now, it's now starting to become a little more reputation based, where not only does the participant recognize the partner and trust that partner to provide them with a good program, but they're also noticing, like, oh, that's a Tidewater Arts Outreach program. Like, I did that over here. I did this at that library or whatnot. It's going to be great. Let's go back again. So
You're familiar. Yeah, you're familiar to them.
yeah, the familiarity is starting to happen, which is one of our strategic plan goals. So I'm so glad.
When you're developing programming, or your artists are creating programming or activities for these communities, what, like, how do you ensure that it's age appropriate, I guess?
Yes.
Because we've talked about this a little bit before, like the importance of not babying people, or, you know, making it age appropriate.
It's a big question. And honestly, I was talking to someone about this earlier today, even. That line can be really fine sometimes. And again, when we're doing our artist interviews before they join the roster, and we also have in our artist handbook now that gets really into detail about this, we're very clear. We're here to serve adults. Even when children are present in the programs, which sometimes they are, depending on the partner and what's going on and whatnot. But even when that's the case, your focus is the adults, and the adults need to be proud of what they did at the end and feel like they really participated in something meaningful for them. And so we kind of like internally came up with this little catchphrase that I eventually did like an e-blast about. So I guess it's not internal anymore, but we say, particularly for our visual arts artists, we say frame, not fridge. So not that I have anything against fridge art. There's nothing wrong with that. The fridge is a great place, but I want the products that they are, and I say products just meaning like what they've produced,
Sure.
In a program, to be so meaningful to them that they would maybe take it to get framed and put on their wall. They are super proud of what they did. We have a community where they did their first like acrylic pour program, and they just made these little, like, I think they're like 6x6 squares or something. They weren't huge, but they were so proud of them that they hung them up in the main lobby of their community. Not just like, they didn't just take them back to the rooms, they wanted the whole, like all their fellow residents to see them. And so that's the result we're looking for, is like, oh wow, I didn't know I could accomplish something like that, and I did, and now I want everyone to know about it. So we're very conscientious about that. And like even our program staff, when they're working with artists to plan programs and determine the content and everything. I love how I have this glow, by the way. For those
I
of you
know, it's very, yes. If you're listening, you need to watch the video. It's pretty cool.
It's like very striking. Anyway, but our program staff will even like really help the artists when they're conceiving their program ideas. Almost every single program is completely different. And, so they'll be like, I like this idea, but let's up the ante a little bit so that we make sure, again, that an adult who's had a rich life, full experience, and has got their own talents. Like a lot of them, we're like, that's some hidden talent right there.
Mm-hmm.
You walk in here saying you can't do art, and we're a little confused about what you mean by that, but because it looks pretty great, and if I try to do that, that's not what would happen. And so that's our focus, and we're very conscious. That's not something that will happen just whatever. You have to make conscientious decisions about that, and yeah.
Are you still? How long have you been with Tidewater?
So I've served as the executive director. It's been 2 years exactly this week. I was actually just looking at the
Wow.
date. Yeah.
Oh my gosh! Wait, say that again.
Applause.
Say that again. How long have you been with Tidewater?
2 years exactly as the executive director.
It's gonna be a remote week in a podcast.
I love that. And I did serve as the director of development for about a year prior to that. And then there was a break in between. That's kind of when COVID happened and everything, like first happened. Is it still happening? I don't know. But so yeah, about a little over 3 years with the organization in total. But when I took over as executive director was like December 2020, or I'm sorry, November 2020, like when it was just kind of like, all right,
Perfect timing.
Yeah, it was wild.
Nice.
We were like programs and a few partners, and let's just see what we can do here. So it's much better now. I will say that.
Do you still get I still get goosebumps and I will tear up like when people make that like switch in their minds of like, oh, I am an artist. Like, can you talk a little bit about that? About watching people kind of come into their creativity?
Oh yeah.
And how that feels.
So it's hard sometimes. We're doing almost 90, we're doing over 90 programs a month right now, which is a lot. And so the staff and I always have to balance this, like going to programs versus planning programs. They are not the same thing. And our region is very wide geographically. So we'd spend all of our time in the car going to programs, or we can plan the programs. Those are kind of our choices, but we try to go to them whenever we can. When I get to witness this moment, it's amazing, but I also get to read them in our artist surveys because artists are awesome at filling out their post-program surveys. And when I see something like, there's a sweet woman coming into a program, and it's a painting program, and she just came to support her friend because we find out later she has macular degeneration, and she was pretty convinced that there was just no way she was going to be participating. But as she was like seeing what the artist was doing with the other participants, she was like, well, maybe, and picks up a paintbrush and starts doing it. And the artist leads her through the whole thing. And only after she's created her masterpiece does the artist get the story of why she was, kind of hanging back at the beginning. And she just said, like, I just never thought I would be able to do this, but I love what I see here. And I feel so accomplished. And when we measure the benefits of these programs with participants and partners, we have a list of benefits we want them to check off that they observed in the program. And the feeling accomplished and confident is the third, is in the top three. The first one is positive social interaction with others, which is great because that's our primary mission. Second one is better mood. And then the third is the confidence and accomplishment. And I think that feeds into the other two very much. Like, I am an artist. And for some of them, they were, quote unquote, were artists, and they feel like that's done until they do it. And then they're like, oh, I can still do it. And then some never even tried, but now I'm here and I'm in this program. I guess I'll try it. And then they try it and they're like, wow, I didn't know I had, like I said, the hidden talent thing. I didn't know I had that inside of me. And that's always a wonderful moment to see someone just realize, like, hey, it's not over. And that's going back to like when you were talking about like how we serve adults, we hammer this home. It's a very conscious effort of like, these people are still alive, they're still contributing to life on this earth. We are not going to treat them like, okay, your time is done, you're on the shelf, all of that stuff. None of that is welcome here. This is a very welcoming organization and mission, but those are a couple things that are just not welcome. And we don't want any of that juju. We want we're here to celebrate everybody's talent and individuality and what they can still do. So that's what we're aiming for.
What would you say to people who, I guess I have like two questions, because I think there's probably a lot of people that, whether they're caregivers or they have a family member that perhaps lives in one of these types of communities, and they might be thinking like, well, I'm not an artist or musician, or I'm not creative. Do you have any, I guess, tips for how people can still engage with their loved ones or a friend that they know that might be isolated. Like, how can they engage with this population of people, even if they feel like they themselves don't have some like special talent to share?
Right. Yeah. So when we like this is so interesting. It's actually something we're really going to be tackling in 2023, with empowering others to empower others. Like we're trying to roll out a new training program that our staff and our artist roster will facilitate to make, like, particularly our program staff, like, or our partner staff, like our program directors, the coordinator, like everyone I was just mentioning, feel like they can also do that. And definitely, you know, to your point of like family members and caretakers, like also incorporating them into that type of experience where it's like, let me show you how we do what we do in an accessible way for someone who isn't necessarily like been painting for 20 years or been making music. Everyone can be creative, like, and I speak as someone who got a bachelor's of music degree. Like, there's certainly professionalization in art, and I think that's great. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But I also don't think the general population needs to be like, well, I'm not an artist, because none of us would agree with that. Like, you know, we say, like, if you make music, you're a musician. If you make art, you're an artist. And there's someone who appreciates what you're doing. Like, it's not everyone, but there's always somebody who's going to appreciate your efforts. And I think that there's so many opportunities that people have to be creative with their loved ones and those around them. And the emphasis on those experiences, like, cannot be overstated. I actually have a grandmother-in-law. I know it sounds weird, but my husband's grandmother, she just recently passed after turning 100. And she's an amazing woman. I say it in the present tense because I think she's still amazing. Was an MFA. You know, she was painting well into her 90s. Beautiful works of art. I love her stuff. She did geometric patterns, and but there were several times where Eleanor, you know, would be in rehabilitative care for just various, you know, health concerns and whatnot. And I loved visiting her and bringing these random art projects. This is well before I heard of Tidewater Arts Outreach, by the way. So once I heard of this, I knew I was home. But you know, I would bring her like these, like, we would make wreaths or something, and I would sit there with her and create. And I just didn't, not only was it like amazing, I think, for her, because she was just like sometimes bored out of her mind, like, you know, not exactly fun to convalesce. But I was also like, this is so relaxing. Like, before work, I had an evening job at that time, and like, do before work and just feel very much like, oh, this is like, I could just sit here all day and do this. So ready to go do my actual job now. And I actually looked into being like a recreation therapist out of that, because I was like so inspired. But now I'm here, and this is great. And like, you know, I think I've found my home. But like the benefits to humans when they create are certainly very they can be very what's the word I'm looking for, nebulous, as far as like nailing down like the actual benefits. And I think those benefits of like your soul food and whatnot are really, really wonderful, and they can't be discounted. But for those of you who are a little more cerebral and practical, which I'm a very pragmatic human being, and so I understand that, there's real research and science behind how creating makes you a healthier human being. If you have a family member who is experiencing poor health, I think there's a lot that you can do to make that better by encouraging them to create with you. It doesn't replace modern medicine, but it certainly complements what we're doing medically, so that, you know, you can achieve a better outcome and at least peace. You know, I was talking about hospice earlier. Like, you know, at some point we are all going to leave this earth. Like, that's just the way it is. But you can still leave on a high note. And I think that's like the power of the arts to do all of the things that I'm just talking about. And I'll stop talking, because like I could just go on forever and the research goes on forever for those of you who are interested. The Foundation for Art and Healing is a great resource for this. For those who want to actually look it up, they're like, "Are you just picking this up?" So no, there's a great pool of research out there to look at, and they have nice little succinct fact sheets that you can read and whatnot. But yeah, I encourage people to not just rely upon the TAOs and the professional artists for this service. Like, what we do is great, but if you are just a family member with an older loved one that you're like, I want to get out and create with them, well, then just go do it. Take them to an art museum. You know what I mean? Like, just do the thing. You're absolutely making a difference that way.
Yeah, and I think that's important that you said take them to a museum. It isn't go buy all these supplies or go buy a new guitar. It's there are benefits to just ingesting the arts as well.
Even if it's showing them a book, like going through an art book together. Yeah.
Right.
I had a question that I was super excited. This is why I need a pen to write these things down but I was getting so into what you were saying that I completely forgot what I was going to ask. But what are you excited about for the future of arts and health, or maybe of Tidewater? Like, what are you looking forward to?
Well, I was referring to like the body of research that is increasing all the time, and I'm certainly excited for that to continue. I want more and more people to understand like that this is real and it's not just like voodoo or something. I also think that the pandemic, as horrible as it was, really opened everyone up to just how critical creativity and creative arts and creating as a person is to just being a human. I don't know anyone who didn't adopt something, even if it was just like, I got really good at cooking. Well, cooking is an art. As someone who loves to cook, like, that's the whole thing. They call it culinary arts for a reason. It's actually something I really hope to have in our repertoire one day. But the people who were like, I'm now decorating cupcakes all the time because that's what my boredom thing was during the pandemic. It's like, well, it wasn't boredom. It was, I no longer have a lot of the stimulus that I would have from going out and being with friends and whatever, and creating filled this hole that I had. It because not only can you experience isolation from others, I think you can experience isolation from yourself. And both of those things are extremely unhealthy. And what art does is it can address both of those things. It can address it when you're alone in a room and you're feeling really disconnected from like your own head and you don't know why. And like, you just like, you sit down, you just start writing, or you just start drawing, or you just, start beating out of whatever it is that you're doing. Like, we do this because it's actually a human need. And then same thing for, societal connection. Like, look at like any society in the world and you'll see how every single one has a method of getting together and creating, whether it's dance, artwork, music. They do it. They have some sort of system for it. Some are, sometimes it looks like a symphony. Sometimes it looks like I did this really cool folk dance when I was in Hawaii many years ago visiting grandparents, and I'm Japanese by descent, and they have something called a bone dance, which is it's a line dance is basically what it is. I mean, every culture has one, and this one is called a bone dance, and you get in a circle and you you follow the leader and do the things, and it was super fun. And like, I didn't know anything about it before I tried it at the cultural center, and we have to do these things. It is inside of us. There is no getting away from it.
Yeah, it's like we just have to accept it. Like,
right.
Just accept it, that it's here and that we need it, and that someone just said the other day, we're created to create. And I was like, yes.
100. That is like, yes, 100% created to create. And I think for the future, it's like, we need to really invest in this. Like I'm a very pragmatic person, and one of my primary jobs here is fundraising. And I'm constantly just telling funders, like, look, I'm going to pay my artists and I'm going to buy professional supplies. That's my standard. So, I need your support to do that. And I think it's a good investment of your funds. And many of our funders agree, which is how we've managed to sustain the growth that we've seen, which is fantastic. And I think that is the trajectory. I I think, again, horrible pandemic, but there were great lessons learned out of it.
I said that during the entire height of the pandemic is I hope we don't forget how important the arts were during this, when every museum suddenly had free virtual tours. They were putting, there were arts all over the internet so people could take it in, and people were just giving away their art because they knew how important it was. And I hope we don't ever forget that.
Absolutely. Yeah, I hope not too. And at least while I am living, and breathing, I will continue to help. I'll be that person with grandchildren or something going back in my day.
Yeah.
I intend to be that person.
Hopefully we can be the grandparents that are back in my day, I didn't have a musician in my hospital room every time I was admitted.
Exactly. Yeah. Oh man, that is what we should aim for. It's it used to be boring, and now look at you. Coloring, playing drums,
live music. Yeah.
Stop complaining.
How lucky are you to be in the hospital right now?
How fortunate are you right now?
Yeah. Kate, what's the best way for people to connect with you or Tidewater Arts or learn more about what y'all are doing?
Yeah, so we're pretty good at being at communicating, or at least I think we are. So we have a website, tidewaterartsoutreach.org. Also, all of our social media stuff, we're on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. Our handle's at 757 Arts Outreach. We're also on Twitter. Twitter's been gotten a little weird lately, so I've been leaving that alone. That's a whole other conversation.
But I would love to have with you. Yes.
We can relate.
When this ends recording and we have things.
We'll just wait a minute for that. But yeah, so we're on all the social media sites. Always happy to get just random emails from people who want to learn more, collaborate, talk more about
have you on their podcast.
Yeah, exactly. We'd love to connect with anyone. So holler at us.
Great.
Thank you,
Catherine.
Kate.
Yeah. Any last words, Catherine, before we let Kate go to her?
It was just so good to talk with Kate Powell today. Cue the applause.
Oh, I'm so. I was agreeing. Is it going? Oh, there.
There we go.
It's the afternoon, and we apparently didn't give them enough sugar before we recorded. Kate, thank you so much for hanging out with us today.
Oh no, thank you for having me. It's been a delight.
We appreciate you. I have so many questions about what you're doing after we're done recording. So I'm going to say goodbye, everyone. Thank you for listening and watching. Make sure you subscribe wherever you're doing that. And make sure you keep creating, okay? All right, everyone. See you next time. Bye.
Thank you for listening to Arts for the Health of It. This episode is produced by Hearts Need Art, creative support for patients and caregivers, and hosted by Richard Wilmore and Catherine Hardesini. You can support the show and help others learn about the healing power of the arts by visiting heartsneedart.org. The views expressed on this podcast do not necessarily reflect the views of Hearts Need Art, their staff, board members, or other affiliates. All content is created for informational purposes only. This podcast is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice or to diagnose and treat any health condition. Always seek the advice of your physician or other qualified health professional with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition. Never disregard professional medical advice or delay in speaking because of something you've heard on